Dude, spring semesters were always the worst for me. It's just like you don't want to do shit because it's cold, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, I was just driving up on campus the other day. It's cold now, obviously. And I was like, man, yeah, how many classes did I just not go to because I didn't want to walk up that fucking hill in the cold, dude?
I took a lease out on your heart. I took a lease out on your heart. Can I at least have fun? Can I at least have fun? Can I at least have fun?
Welcome back, everybody. We are Rough Draft Research. You are the audience, and together we are on a quest for Dynasty domination. How's it going over there, Daniel?
It's going really well, going really well.
Good,
Still
good.
trying to get used to this IDP league I just joined, you know
Oh,
what I mean?
fun, fun.
Been a lot of fun. I'm like, oh geez, this is intense. It's intense. So nice pickup with that Byron Young dude. That was fairly
Somebody's got to
impressive.
take over that role for the Rams going into next year with Wagner leaving and everything again. Wagner leaving probably again. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited you and Dana are in that league now. I think it's going to round that league out super nicely. Having everybody was pretty active, just a couple guys. I think it's hard to get a dynasty league together.
Oh
Everybody knows.
yeah, especially in the first go.
Yeah, and so the fact that we were able to get you two in so quickly and already more active, like it's been fun. I'm really excited for the second year of that league now, kind of having more of a feel for the defensive players. But that is not what we're here to talk about. So
No
I do a
defensive
shit
players.
job of introducing myself. I always introduce you. So I'm Christian for those not
Oh my God.
yeah, right. I need to start doing that more. It's professional, you know. But for those that don't know who I am, so we are Rough Draft Research, and if you were with us last week, you saw us reseed our Sweet 16 from our March Madness style bracket for all the rookie inbound class from 2023. This is going to be kind of a preview for the 2024 class, obviously, but also just what have we learned about the 2023 class. So we eliminated some guys that didn't deserve to be in the top 16, added some guys, and reseeded them. If you weren't here last week, the way we did it is we seeded all the one seeds together, all the two seeds together, all the three seeds together, all the four seeds together. That way it's a little more fair instead of having like a dominant one seed over a four seed. So, with all of that red tape and everything out of the way, you want to get us into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, like Christian was saying, this is just rehashing what we did in the spring, except for now we've got their first seasons in the bag. So, to make it more interesting, all the fours versus the fours, I feel like there's no better place to crack into it. It'll get more exciting as we go.
Yeah.
Uh, so for the four seeds, and they're kind of randomly thrown together on this bracket. But for the first round here, we've got JSN versus Dalton Kincaid, and then we've got Josh Downs versus Rasheed Rice. So I don't know. We can start with JSN and Dalton Kincaid. Um, I'd say Kincaid barely made it into our Sweet 16, so
Mm,
it looks for him to maybe get knocked out early. But when I look at the information on the guy, he did finish as the tight end 11.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's not too shabby. He actually finished as a tight end one 8 times and had two top five tight end games. And somehow we've managed to select 16 guys that all had at least 150 fantasy points, except for Anthony Richardson, right? So 150 points in a rookie year, sharing the field with Dawson Knox. You got to look at that as future promise, which I'm kind of baking into this competition.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks because you would have thought for sure JSN here, but it is an interesting conversation because I mean, we've all seen Dawson Knox kind of take half of the role that Kincaid needs to be like a Sam Laporta level type tight end, but he still had 91 targets, which is only two less than JSN as a wide receiver. He, like you said, he ended up as the tight end 11, and that was only on two touchdowns. He had five top 10 fantasy finishes this season. I just I like him a lot. I thought Knox was going to be leaving at the end of this year. It doesn't seem like that. I mean, you never know in the NFL. They seem to move on from guys, but the contract doesn't line up. And then you saw it in the wild card round. You saw Kincaid get a touchdown, Knox get a touchdown. So if that keeps happening, it hurts his value, but that's only for one more year. And it's not like the kid is super old or anything. Whereas JSN, I don't know, like just kind of was a bit of a letdown. Wasn't totally his fault. Was the third guy there on the depth chart. But now that team's going to be moving around. Are we going to see a Metcalf leave, a
Oh
Lockett leave
yeah.
with whoever comes in? If that happens, then great. Like then I think JSN probably has a little bit of an edge. But if that doesn't happen and he's still the third guy there, and it's still Geno Smith, I think that significantly limits his top tier value. And then you would think with Knox being kind of on a contract year next year, I don't remember if it's just an out year or if it's an outright contract year. So my apologies there, but it seems like he'll be gone at the end of next year. But I still think you might see Kincaid kind of take over as the starter there. So honestly, part of me wants to lead Kincaid here for that positional advantage of tight end that I'm always talking about, which sucks because I actually invested a little bit into JSN and a Jamar Chase trade. So I'm kind of rooting for the guy, but I don't know. I kind of want to lean Kincaid here.
Yeah, I'm probably wrong, but I think Knox just finished a second of a 3-year deal. So I bet don't quote me on that. But the thing with JSN was like he had that great sophomore year when he
Hmm.
was sharing the field with Olave and Garrett Wilson, and people are like, oh no, he was the best guy on that team, and then he misses all of the his junior year, and then he comes out, and it's kind of a risky move to invest in him heavily. And I don't know, in my opinion, I don't think he really did anything to make me feel like he was on the level of those other Ohio State guys, which
Mm-mm,
is kind of
definitely
what
not.
you were hoping to get. Um, so I'm definitely I'm willing to give Kincaid
Okay.
the bump on this one, man.
Okay. I'm down. I think that might be one of the ones that can come back to bite us because JSN being that premium top or number one pick talent, so it may rear its head. But yeah, I'm with you right now. As of right now, I think in a vacuum, I'd want Kincaid more. So
Yeah, 5 pick difference in the first round last year in the
yeah.
NFL draft.
Oh yeah, I guess Kincaid was just a first round pick too. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it makes it a little more even. Anyway, moving on to the next round, next matchup in the fours. We got Josh Downs and Rasheed Rice here, and I think it'd be kind of hard to not go Rice here after what he did wild card weekend, right?
Yeah, dude. I mean, I'm kind of feeling silly having him as a 4 after seeing that, man. I mean, that was pure ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, what is it? Was it like 8 catches for 130 yards or something like that?
Hmm.
And he pretty much carried the entire team.
Oh yeah, he looked
Um,
awesome. Looked
you're not going to get anything. I mean, whatever. Downs. So just to break it down, Rice for me had 3 wide receiver 1 weeks, and he had 1 top 5, and so 211 fantasy points this year, um, in 16 games. Whereas Downs had only 1 top 12, which happened to be a top 5, and he's about 60 or 50 points lower, with only 157 fantasy points on 17 games. And we know, a little bit of a mix up with how well he played with Richardson versus Minshew, but I definitely think you got to go Rice here, no doubt. But
Yeah, I mean, Downs is a good player, and I like his upside with Richardson coming back. Although, if you go back and look at the games he had with Richardson, he had pretty fairly minimal success. but he's already the number two option beside a Pittman. He led or was second on the team in targets. So he's clearly already got a role there, and I think he can improve as he develops as a player. But Rice kind of on wildcard weekend was the first time I looked at and saw like oh, this he could be a number one then. Like because he kind of like you're right, he carried the entire offense. Now weird kind of situation. I still think that the Chiefs bring somebody in, and that's why like it slid him down into the fours. But I'm good going him over Kincaid here for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with that too. Absolutely. Putting him in
Sounds
the
good.
what are we calling that? The final four?
And it'd still be the Elite Eight, right?
Oh yeah, well you said over Kincaid, so
Oh,
I
sorry,
know of a
no.
little foreboding, but
Oh
put him
no,
over
my bad.
Downs.
Over downs, yeah.
Okay.
Which that does bring up. Do you want to just finish out the fours or continue to one of the others?
I think we're already talking about it.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
I think Rice's potential with the Chiefs kind of gives them an edge over. I still like whatever's happening in Buffalo. I still don't find anything predictable or like forecastable. Like that team could be completely different depending on how things go this next week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
With Diggs and everything, you just never know what that. And Gabe Davis going in, and like this is his last year on his deal, so could look different next year too. As far as the opportunity, I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I do think Rice is a little more consistent. I don't know that his ceiling as far as a receiver will be quite as high as Kincaid's ceiling as far as a tight end, but I think you'll get a
Right.
more consistent guy as he just kind of becomes the consistent producer for Patrick Mahomes. Like I said, I still think they bring in another guy, which could hurt his value a bit, but I think he hangs around the teens and 20s for his whole career if he continues to play like he did. Now he is a little on the older side too. I think he's like 24. Uh, that's not going to hurt him in the long run, but just throwing it out there. Okay, so then let's go to the threes then. If we're going from down up. So we'll go to the three bracket where our first matchup is Tank Dell versus Tajay Spears, followed by Jordan Addison versus Jaden Reed, a little NFC North rivalry matchup there for you guys. So starting with Spears and Dell, what do you think?
Okay, so first of all, with Dell, I mean, there you got to go flashback a little bit on him for me. You got to look at coming into last year, right? This guy's tiny, so we were giving him all kinds of grief. But he was number one in college receiving and touchdowns, and second in catches coming in. So we should probably put a little more respect on him. But you also have to consider 5'8", 165. Not really exactly hot, awesome, but I like the guy. I really like what I saw the 4 games prior to his injury. He was out there. He had 84% of the snap shares, and he had 43 targets and 25 catches in those 4 games for 369 yards and 5 touchdowns. So I mean, if you imagine not having an injury and just going with this, over 10 targets a game, kind of just obviously top five, top 10 sort of volume and production at the wide receiver position, we're having a whole different conversation. So that in mind, he did have 4 top 12 wide receiver games. Surprise, surprise, is probably this four. 2 of them were top five. And I've got this stat that, or I've got this category that none of the number fours hit, but I have like a beast games, so games over 25 fantasy points, and he had 3 of those this
Ooh,
past season. So
nice.
I'm getting pretty excited. He's actually the wide receiver 19 on per game averages.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I know you got some stuff to say about Tajay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sick of playing scared. I feel like my whole fantasy career, I've been fairly conservative, scared of injuries, scared of uh picking the wrong guy. And I don't want to do that with Tank Dell because like what you're saying is completely true. He was electric on the field. He didn't play full seasons with a rookie quarterback, still ended up with 700 yards and 7 touchdowns. Was clearly CJ Stroud's favorite target, although Stroud has shown the ability to dart it around to everybody. So I don't know how
True.
much that weighs. But I think they have a special chemistry there. Obviously, everybody said Stroud was looking for him in the draft. Tajay, on the other hand, I do think this if you want to talk about like a dark horse league winner, I think it's somebody like Tajay Spears. Like he could be next year's Kyron Williams. Maybe
Yeah.
not quite to that level in that McVay style offense, but a guy coming in had 150 touches behind Derrick Henry, still produced over 800 yards and 3 touchdowns, and now he's going to be the guy on a rebuilding team, and he's going to be really one of the few like faces coming back. You imagine they move on from Tannehill, Derrick Henry's moving on. It seems like a pretty substantial rebuild in Tennessee. My only fear is that there's a new coach coming in, and sometimes running backs can get lost when that happens. So that makes me okay putting Dell over him if that's where you want to go. But I think this one's really, really close, man. I'll be banging the Tajay drum all off season. I think he's gonna have a great season. I don't know about his longevity in terms of dynasty I mean, we like to make the jokes, but two having no ACLs is probably not gonna lend to a super long career in the NFL. But I think he looks super, super explosive. And if he comes out and is the same guy, but gets the amount of touches, maybe not that Derrick Henry got in his prime, but like if he gets a reasonable starting amount of touches, he could be a top 10 running back for you, in my opinion. So that to me makes me want to kind of fight harder for him. But with the new coach, the uncertainty around Tennessee, we don't even know what the quarterback situation is going to be like. And then you never know, did Derrick Henry help Tajay? Every time he comes off the field, now they think, oh, we're not going to run it. Now Tajay's going off. But he had a pretty good mix of run and pass. So I'm not worried about it. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. But I'm good with moving Tank Dell over because my only thing to say about Tank Dell is that he's small and he already got hurt. And if that's
Well,
you're just playing scared.
Well, another thing to consider is in those games that I was talking about, the 43 targets and all this and that and all those numbers, it was still only 28% of the target share. Like CJ Stroud was going off in those weeks. He wasn't
Mhm.
the only one getting the ball thrown his way. Fucking Xavier Hutchinson's up there playing now,
Yeah.
catching balls in the postseason. I think that as Stroud develops, he will move the ball around more instead of, going to a security blanket. And I think that kind of does level out. Like I said last week, I think that we've seen like Tank Dell's ceiling, and I don't necessarily think it's everyday expectations. Whereas Tajik really does seem. I'm listening to you talk, and I'm hearing like a Rashid White kind of
Yeah,
conversation
Rashad White.
almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rashid. You got me. Yeah, Rashad White type situation. So I'm with you on Spears, man. I'll let this one. I'll let you be correct on this one on paper.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm with it. That's where I wanted to go. So I appreciate you siding with me there. Okay. Well, then we'll move on to Addison and Reed. These guys were weirdly close. Wide receiver 19 for Addison, wide receiver 18 for Jordan Reed. 108 targets, 94 targets, only off by a little bit of receptions, a little bit in yards, a little bit in touch. In fact, if you add the rushing touchdowns for Reed, they ended up at the same amount. Um, so it's pretty this one's pretty hard for me. I don't think either one of them I mean, obviously Addison's not the number one in Minnesota. And Reed, I, I think he is going to be the closest number one that we have right now, with Watson being out all the time and
Sure.
Wicks. Wicks being, I mean, he's a fifth round pick and he's been awesome. Like maybe he ends up being the guy. Dobbs had over 150 yards and a touchdown in
Yeah.
the wild card weekend. And that's kind of where I'm at with Reed is I love him and I think he's awesome and he's going to give you awesome weeks. But I just think with the Green Bay style of offense, like maybe he hangs in the 18s and like 15 to 20 range every year, and maybe he has a great year once or twice. But I think that's kind of where we're going to top him out. Whereas Addison, I do see like maybe a little higher of a ceiling. out of his play style and his deep threat ability. But I mean, if you're in a PPR league, I don't know too, because Reed is gonna get a ton of work in this Green Bay offense. They love him. We're all growing up together in this young offense, and I think he's gonna be one of the leaders there. So I don't know, man. That I might have to defer to you to this one. On this one, I'm pretty close on these guys.
Yeah, I'm extremely close because, yeah, we talked about Jordan Addison, right? So he's got two top 12 games that were both top five. They're actually both number one weeks.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and he's got two of those games over 25 points, which should just happen to be the same 2 weeks. But, a lot of people are going to tell you that he did most of his best work when Justin Jefferson was off the field. And that's true as far as like volume and yardage wise, but actually, five of his 10 touchdowns came in games that Justin Jefferson was on the field. So I think that, yeah, right, Justin Jefferson being on the field doesn't really hamper his fantasy value as long as they've got a quarterback that can make
Yeah.
that deep ball happen, which is up in the air. Whereas you're looking at Jaden Reed, and even though he had a quiet week last week, um, like the guy's doing it. He's doing everything right. He's got four top 12 weeks, one top five, and only one game, the Beast game, over 25 points. But he's playing with top five quarterback right now. And for that reason, I'm probably going to give him the edge over the uncertainty to come in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's tough. If you would have told me going into this year, at the end of the year, Green Bay had the more certain quarterback room than Minnesota, I would have not believed you probably. It's
Unreal.
just, yeah, this emergence of Jordan Love kind of changes everything about the Packers. Like all the guys that I liked and thought in theory they could be good. Well, now they're probably gonna be good because it was all built around this, oh, if Jordan Love hits. Well, he hit. Like I don't know that he's going to win a Super Bowl or that he's going to be a Hall of Famer or anything like that, but he's a professional NFL quarterback that can get your guys on his roster or your fantasy roster. I said that weird, but he can get his guys statistics and rack up fantasy points with them. So I do think as of now, like maybe next year if Kirk is back in Minnesota, then Addison probably outscores Reed if Kirk is healthy for an entire year. But then what? Then where does Kirk go? Whereas we might have Love for the next 15 years again. So I I'm with you. I think it's super, super close though.
All right. Well, I think it's close too. That's why I go to the supporting cast
Cool.
and give Reed the edge on that.
Cool, cool. Well then Tajay and Jaden Reed. So
This is even harder.
this is pretty close as well. I guess I lean a little more into there's not a ton of running backs and there's more receivers. I mean, in this tournament alone, we've got 8 of the Sweet 16 are receivers, whereas only what 4 of them are running backs. So maybe just give it the edge for the running backs. But it is worth noting, I mean, they both I don't know, Reed looks like a bona fide all out superstar. And so does Tajay, but we haven't seen him carry the workload, which we have for Reed. I mean, Reed led all Packers receivers and targets, I think. If not, it was Dobbs, but he would have been second right there. Whereas Tajay has really come in as a complementary role to Derrick Henry. Looked amazing in that role, but just there's some hesitation there. But I would probably, oof, this one's really tough. Probably Tajay just because the running back. But
Okay,
I'm
sure.
also an old school fantasy player. You should probably, I think it depends. If,
Depends on your roster, dude.
yeah,
This is a one in the hand, two in the bush conversation, you know. I
yeah,
feel like Jaden Reed is cooking up to be a sure thing. But like, you gotta sometimes swing for the fences a little bit. And that's and that is why, Spears beat Tank Dell. And I don't think we can pivot from that now. I think we gotta just ride Spears on this one, man.
okay. Well, then I am with you. I will take it.
All right.
Okay, well, I like it. Tajay Spears and Rasheed Rice making it to the final four out of the twos, or sorry, the threes and the fours. So on to those twos I just mentioned. So we've got first matchup Zay Flowers versus Devon Achan. Achan? Oh no, I forgot how to say it.
Did it wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I think, yeah. HN. Go
Okay,
for it.
it's Achan.
It's not
I know
HN.
he yeah.
It's
Okay.
definitely not HN.
I'm gonna cut this. This is awkward. So all right, so first matchup we've got for the twos, we've got Zay Flowers versus Devon Achan, and then we've got a couple quarterbacks going head to head in Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud. So first up, we've got Flowers and Achan, and this is to me, this is a very interesting matchup because it's really about boom or bust guy ceiling versus consistent PPR uh like consistency, I guess, for lack of a better word, but maybe not as quite of a high ceiling with Zay Flowers. I mean, Zay, I love Zay. I think he's going to develop with Lamar a lot, but with his lack of touchdowns and being a little smaller guy, getting harder to get work in the red zone, if they were able to open him up more and kind of take advantage of that, I think he could be the guy. I mean, they already view him that way. He led the Ravens in targets this year by 44 targets, was very clearly the number one guy there. And I do think maybe bringing in another wide receiver to kind of complement him could help him take advantage of more one-on-one matchups. And Flowers was awesome, even as a small guy. I mean, like in contested catches, 5 out of 10, which 10 is quite a bit, but 5 out of 10, 50-50 for a smaller guy is pretty impressive to me. And so, but I just don't know how high his ceiling is as a wide receiver in a Ravens led offense. You know, like he can have an amazing year as the number one receiver in Baltimore and still end up with just over 1,000 yards and like 7 or 8 touchdowns, and which will get you like a top 15 wide receiver, which is awesome, but not maybe groundbreaking. Where on the flip side, Achan has that ability to drop 50 points in a game, but then also like we've seen that inconsistency with injuries already. We've seen it where he maybe doesn't take off towards the end of the year. He had a few games where he didn't have those break off runs, and that kind of hurt his production. And so maybe you get this boomer bust guy as opposed to this guy that's going to get you 10 to 15 points every week. But I don't know. I don't know. I lean Zay personally, but
Ooh. Well, I like a few things about Zay. First of all, like everything about the guy. I mean, this is funny to have this conversation because if he's on any other team, like I don't know. I
yeah.
don't know. He's pretty incredible. You got to give him some props. He's like 6.5% TD rate on his catches, which is pretty awesome. He's got 13 red zone targets, which is one less than Mark Andrews, who obviously
Hmm.
missed some time, but he's getting work in the red zone. He is scoring touchdowns through the air on a team that's not exactly known for that. So he's got a ton of potential. But I mean, damn, dude, this is really tough. So I'll just do my thing here. He's got three, wide receiver 12 or better weeks, none in the top five, and no games over 25 points, 206 fantasy points in 16 games. And then you go to and okay, so this guy's got 5 games in the top 12, 4 games in the top five, and he's got 3 games over 25 points in that beast mode category, including a game of 50 fantasy points, which accounted for over 25% of his season total of 192. And he is fifth if you go in a per game on 11 games in the running back category. So, what do you trust? Do you trust a guy who would have been the running back 5 over the season if he'd played the whole time, even though 2 of those games were him getting 1 touch or, less than, anything on the ground? It's really only like 5 meaningful games, and he
Hmm.
and he was able to put up 200 fantasy points. The potential for that, I don't know, man. I trust the Miami offense as far as utilizing HN more than I trust Baltimore, even though it seems like a strong fit. I just look at Mozart and maybe like Jeff Wilson or whatever that can't be the future. HN is the future. I'm sure he's going to get some competition in that backfield, but dude, I mean, you can't argue with what it's done. I don't think Flowers. I think he's amazing, really, as a football player. But in fantasy, I think he's probably going to end up giving you headaches down the road.
Probably.
Whereas HAN, if he's hitting, it's just going to make your team a juggernaut. So it's hard for me to argue with the juggernaut.
Hey, hey, you put a beautiful argument together. I will roll with it. So HN will be moving on over Zay Flowers. Oh, upset to me. Moving on to the next matchup, Anthony
Yeah,
Richardson versus CJ Stroud. I think
we're
we
gonna have the
kind
same
of,
conversation.
yeah, we kind of, it's a, pretty much. And then we kind of had this conversation last week, and it was the reason I had Stroud as a 3 and Richardson as a 2. Is exactly what you're saying? He has the rushing ability to, like, we projected him out just like you would have Devon Achan, and he would have been the QB2 on the year. Whereas
Mhm.
CJ Stroud finishes at the QB11 with missing some games. So he's right there. It's not like he's far behind. But I just think Richardson, if he stays healthy, gives you this kind of X factor that other rosters wouldn't have. You know, like Lamar's MVP seasons, it's probably going to win MVP this year, but his true, like, crazy MVP year, you're thinking like that type of play from Richardson, hopefully. And so, like, with that, but Stroud has already also proved it. So we've seen 3 games from Anthony Richardson where he looked great, looked explosive, looked like he could put points on the board. Well, CJ Stroud has proved that he could be a quarterback in the NFL for 15 to 20 years. So that's kind of the conversation you're having is like, okay, do I take the guy that I know day one, he's going to be a guy in the league 10 to 15 years? Maybe he never gets above a QB7, but he is there for me. As long as he doesn't get hurt, that's going to be his status. Um, Whereas Richardson is, oh no, he might get hurt, but if he doesn't get hurt, he can drop 30 points a game for me because he can run 2 touchdowns as well as throwing them. So I think, I mean, we've been doing it this whole time in the tournament, going upside over consistency. So I think to continue that trend, we go Richardson. But I'm again, it's another close matchup here with the same position, and I think Stroud has just been unbelievable, and the sky is the limit, you
Well,
know.
yes,
So
it is.
but I say the same for Richardson though too. So
Yeah, this one's really tough. I lean Stroud personally, and it's because he's had seven, QB1 games, two in the top five, and he's put up 2 points, or 2 weeks over 25 points. Whereas Richardson, right, 2 games in the top five out of the three, one of them was over 25. I mean, it's pretty incredible what he was doing when he was on the field. The upside is insane. I mean, this rookie year we've seen out of Stroud is it's not unprecedented, but and there's been a string of semi disappointing quarterbacks coming out, like
yeah,
pretty pretty thick stream of it, and to just see one to go out there and just play well, no questions, like no criticisms, and just make it happen is incredible. It's very stabilizing to a fantasy roster to have that, but he's not that league winner over the top guy like Richardson. So, I mean, if we already got the bad out, we're swinging for the fences, man.
well,
So,
I mean, but like you said, I mean, you just pointed out it's not like Stroud can't have those weeks. I mean, it's not like it- how many did you say you had? 5 where he was in the top 5? Is that what you said? And
he
two,
only had two in the top five,
2 in the top
seven in
5,
the top 12, though.
7 in the top 12, 2 in the top 5. And I mean, it's not like you can't use that same logic that I use to say you would want Richardson over Joe Burrow, even though it's objectively the same thing if you want to be there. So like you're right. I mean, Richardson is more of a like, ooh, look what I might have, whereas Stroud is, oh, look what I already have. to build around
Mhm.
and him to just be there. So, I mean, if you want to go that way, I'm fine with it. I think they're very, very close in terms of dynasty. I think I just was on Richardson all season. He looked great, and it got taken away from me. So I'm still just on that train. So it's hard for me to let it go. But I do think, I mean, it's hard to deny what CJ Stroud has done. So I think if you want to go that route, I'm down.
All right. I'm a Stroud guy.
Cool,
I mean, I
cool.
love Richardson, but it's still like didn't have a ton of college experience. Now uh, we need to see how he adjusts to defenses adjusting to him. We haven't got that opportunity. Who
Yeah.
knows? Who
And we
knows?
need to see if he can stay healthy.
For sure.
So all right. So that means our Elite Eight matchup for the twos is Devon Achan versus CJ Stroud. This is not how I expected this to go.
No.
So I'm a little flustered here, but I mean, based on everything you've been saying, I think I would honestly lean Achan here, because he could be an absolute league wrecker if he comes out and acts away. Raheem Mostert did this season and leads the league in touchdowns, on the Miami Dolphins. Then he can break a fantasy league for you. So I don't think that CJ Stroud has that same ability, even if he's a top five quarterback every year. He's still just a top five quarterback along with those other guys, like with Mahomes and Allen and Jackson and yada da 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 da. Whereas
Yeah.
HN, I mean, the running back room recycles so much, and he has that ability to win. I think it's somewhat close, but I think I
It's
like
close.
HN to win this.
Yeah, HN has the potential to be like, like CD Lamb was this season. It
Yeah.
was just like, good luck beating me this week because that should just happen to you. So
Yeah.
I'll give it to him. I like that. So, whew.
Okay. Well, now we are getting into the big boy territory in the one bracket. So the first matchup we've got Sam Laporta versus B. Jean Robinson, and then Puka Nakua versus Jameer Gibbs. So going into the first one. Whew. I know where, ooh, this is tough. Laporta versus Bijan. Okay. I don't know. This is really tough for me as a running back stan and a Bijan absolute super fan. But Sam Laporta was on 60% of championship rosters, according to ESPN, as along with TJ Hawkinson, as far as tight ends. The number you've been bringing up fantasy points this offseason or this episode, and I gonna kind of piggyback off you a little bit here.
Yeah.
There were 18 running backs who scored over 200 points in fantasy this year in PPR fantasy. There were 33 wide receivers who got over that number. There were six tight ends that got over the 200 number, six of them. To me, having that positional advantage at tight end is super, super advantageous. And Sam Laporta could just completely rewrite the book on that positional value. He's 23 years old. The first tight end one season for these other guys, I'm going to give you their first tight end one season and their age, and it's going to be pretty surprising. Travis Kelce, tight end one, first time, 28. Andrews, 26. Jimmy Graham, 26. The closest comparison in the modern era of tight ends starting this hot is Gronk. Gronk came in at 22 and was the tight end one on the year. If Gronk doesn't get hurt, he has potentially the greatest tight end career of all time if he doesn't stay getting hurt. So to me, you're looking at a chance to get Gronk in 2011 with Laporta. He did the exact same thing. He's going to get the same production. He looks phenomenal. There's nothing that says that he's not going to be that guy. But on the other hand, you could also take the positional advantage of the running back and take a guy who in a down year was the RB9, 86 targets, was fourth in the league, or third in the league behind Kamara and Brees Hall, in front of even Christian McCaffrey, who's getting a new coach coming inbound who hopefully will improve. Whereas the Falcons were fifth in PFF rushing grade in 2022, while 22 this year. So they went down despite still being third in attempts. And so there was just something out of whack with this Atlanta offense. And I think a reset could unlock the Bijan that we were all talking about. And I think both these guys could be complete X factors for a fantasy team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all assuming Bill Belichick doesn't end up as the Atlanta coach.
Yeah.
So I don't see him turning Bijan into, Shane Vereen or something. And I don't know. LeGarrette Blunt is Algier, and it's just over now. It's sad. I don't want to live in that world. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's the fact of the matter is Laporta had 11 tight end one games. He had 8 top 5, and he had 2 games over 25 fantasy points. Yeah, Bijan only had 2 games over 25 fantasy points. He had 8 top 12 games, which I was pretty surprised about. In fact, 2 of them were the first 2 weeks of the year. He had 2 top 5 fantasy weeks, and the difference, it's all kind of different depending on your league settings, but the difference in their points scored was less than 10 points on the year. So you're telling me that you've got the 101, or you got a tight end that's putting up the same amount of points as the running back, you got the 101. I mean, that tight end's special, man. Especially he only had 21% of the target share. Bijan's over here had 17 and 41% of the carry share. But I feel like both of those guys are going to go up. What's to say Laporta doesn't go up, even more, and carry his usage to the next level, being so reliable. It's hard, man. I know I sound like I'm picking Laporta. I feel like I didn't know what I was going to do until I started talking here. I love Bijan, and I don't know, weird thing. Me and friend of the pod, AJ, went to a KU game, and Bijan put up like 180 rushing yards in the first half on the Jayhawks. And it was like, I don't have any more questions about that dude after that day. And so it's hard to argue against that. But the kicker for me, the thing that makes me want to go Laporta here, is watching him get hurt in week 18 and then just like still make it back, to be a badass, to have a great game in the wild card. Like, everyone was scared, and the guy's tough. I saw him play in college too at the Music City Bowl, and he put a hurting on Kentucky. He even threw a couple passes in that game. So I love Laporta, man. I don't know why, but I'm all about this guy.
No, and I mean, I'm with you. It's tough for me to say the same thing. I mean, I obviously all of this kind of stuff is down to your roster. You need more running backs, so obviously it's tough. But yeah, the advantage that Laporta gave a lot of teams this year is like cannot be ignored. And I just think that it needs to be recognized that he started unlike anybody we've seen. And like you're saying, it wasn't even dominating the target share. It wasn't like, oh my God, we don't have other weapons. We have to rely on this rookie.
Right.
No, he just was that good. And so I don't see it really going anywhere. And I do think Bijan still has all the potential in the world to be a regular top RB3, like top 3 RB. And I think this one's super close, but that's what we did to ourselves, ranking all the ones together. So I'm with you. I think
Yeah,
we go Laporta by just the shred of a hair.
for sure. It comes down to, like, if you drafted Bijan, you're not as happy as you are if you drafted Laporta, and they're both at the top of the hill. So
Yeah,
give it to the guy that delivered.
fair. All right. Well, on that note, we've got Puka Nakua versus Jahmyr Gibbs, and this
Oh,
one, I think this one more than any other thing. So Puka is such a weird, strange enigma that if you think Puka is going to continue at this level, then he's more valuable than probably anybody else in this class. If he does that, if he continues to play at the level that he played at this season where he's the wide receiver 4 and he's the top 5 wide receiver, he's in the right category in the ones, arguing with these two stud running backs and the tight end that we just put above said running back. Because I mean, he broke the rookie catch record. He broke the record for yards. He broke the rookie wide receiver for yards in a playoff game. He was the wide receiver 4 in his rookie season, being a 5th round pick coming out of nowhere. You have to make that call on your own, I think. Because to me, like, I maybe don't see it necessarily that way, but you have, looking at what he did, there's no reason to think that. In PPR scoring, Puka had 3 weeks where he was over 30. You're counting over 25. He had 3 weeks over 30. And then he
Oh yeah.
added an additional 4 over 20. So he had 7 weeks over 20 and 30. So like, just insane levels of production. To me, I think this is the best it's going to get. This is going to be the best Puka season we ever see. Uh, I'm just unsure that this will continue. I think it was a freak flash in the pan for him to be this good. Not that he's not going to be good and still be a great fantasy asset for you. But Matthew Stafford's 35 years old. Sean McVay was already in a weird state of retirement before the year. Seems like things are fixed now. They both seem happy and healthy, but like, who knows what's going on there? And I mean, even Cooper Kupp was only Cooper Kupp for 1 year. We have not seen him get back to that level. Now, Puka's 22 years old. Who knows? But that's me. But again, I think this was one you have to make on your own. You either believe it or you don't. Whereas whew, Gibbs was incredible. He was the RB4 in PPR formats from week 6 to 17. 6 games over that stretch, he had 20 points or more. 71 targets for him. Considering how slow he started, that was awesome. So with a full year worth of production, I think that number goes up and we start seeing him closer to those top 4 guys I was mentioning earlier, Brees, Bijan, CMC, and
Alvin Kamara, baby.
Kamara, yeah. And so to me, I think in a vacuum, I want Gibbs over Puka. But it's hard. I don't know. I don't know. There's nothing that I can actually stamp my flag on and say that with, other than it's just a gut feeling.
You know, I think you laid it out pretty clear, your feelings about Puka. You know, obviously we've both traded Puka, so it's advantageous for us to cheer against him, you know, and whatever. You got a little more than I did for him. Don't have to talk about it. And Desmond Ritter, straight up, fuck. Um,
That's tough.
but man, just to go through, Puka had 9 wide receiver 1 weeks. He had 4 top 5. You nailed it, man. 3 over 30. I started with the over 30, man, but no one else is getting over 30. And so yeah, he had 3 over 30, 297 fantasy points, which I have him as 12th overall of all players. And that's if you don't count sacks against your quarterbacks, by the way. Um, so yeah, the number 12 guy was just this 5th round guy out of BYU. And like you said, 9 for 181 in the playoff game, which kind of, I was cheering for the Lions all the way, but I guess I didn't think when I was cheering against the Rams that their loss put an end to this monumental rookie year, man. Like, we're not going to get to watch Puka Nacua play again until next year. And it's a little bit sad. But to your point, I think you are giving him what we're calling the Stafford bump. I can tell you from some research that only 3 wide receivers have ever had more passes thrown their way in a single season than Nacua did this past year, and it was Cooper Kupp when he broke fantasy football a couple of years back. And then Calvin Johnson, Megatron himself,
Oh,
did it twice. So that's awesome. But do you guys remember like going goo for Kenny Galladay?
hmm.
Do you remember clamoring over Golden Tate? Do you remember the Marvin Jones years where that was the hottest thing in the book? Um, Matthew Stafford has this ability to elevate the players around him to a next level. And
An
Puka's
unreal
definitely
level.
benefiting that. It's crazy. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
wonderful. So, so I had to go back, man. I had to go to my roots, and I watched some BYU film on Puka Nakoa because I had to see like, where did this guy come from? How is he doing any of this? And if you look at the stats, so. Kind of strange, his last year at BYU, he had actually 10 touchdowns, but five of them were on the ground. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no one saw that coming. So I watched the film, and everything you see him do on an NFL field, he's been doing the whole time, man, like getting open, making contested catches, catching the ball in stride, being physical after the catch. Just like those five rushing touchdowns, they were all like end around jet sweeps that he took for 40 yards. It was just crazy stuff. So
Hmm.
the guy is a next level football player. I don't think he is wide receiver four level football player, whereas Jameer Gibbs, who finishes what, the running back 10, I think he is locked into that with the higher ceiling, definitely floating there above him. Only 12% of the target share on that team, 36% of the carries. So the potential for him to go up from here is extremely likely. He's fighting David Montgomery, like it ain't no thing. Love you, Puka Nakoa. Very fascinated. Always going to be cheering for you. Great
Oh yeah.
story. But
Super fun.
dude, Gibbs has like he's got that hot man. He's got six top 12 running back games. All six were top five. The guy's electric when he gets the ball handed to him. He's not going to be rotating series forever. Let's
Yeah.
just let's just accept that. So
100%. He's Kamara of the North. I'm putting it
for
down
sure.
right now. That's who he's going to be. And yeah, I would want Kamara every day of the week, with the production that he's had throughout his career. And I hope we are wrong about Puka because it would be super fun for Puka to be this good for his entire career. And if you have him and you believe that, stamp that
Hold
flag
on to
and
him,
don't
man.
trade him. Like because it
No,
could be that, but just for us and where we're at, I just think in a vacuum I want Gibbs. Which leads us to the Lion Bowl in the Elite Eight, Sam Laporta versus Jameer Gibbs. I think it's got to be fairly easy though, because we can't rightly argue against Bijan for Sam Laporta and then put Gibbs over Laporta. Because I think all these guys are fairly close together. Maybe I think there is a wave of people saying Gibbs over Robinson after this first year, which is hard to deny. Gibbs has looked incredible, but I just think the down year again, quote down year. You were talking about being surprised that he had eight top 12 weeks or whatever it was with Bijan, and he had a quote down year, finishes the RB9. I think these guys both have incredible ceilings, but if we're gonna put Laporta over Robinson over for this positional advantage, I think we got to do the same thing with Gibbs here.
yep,
Okay.
I'm with you.
Perfect. All right. So our new final four has been
Oh,
set.
that's
Co-
cute.
Coming out of the ones, we've got Sam Laporta facing up against Devon Achan coming out of the
Yeah.
twos. The threes finished with Tajay Spears, and the fours is Rasheed Rice. Not a lot of receivers blinking through this class. I think that speaks to me and Dan and our mentality for fantasy. We still running back king. But all right, let's get into it. Final four. I mean, we just said it with Gibbs and Laporta. Sam Laporta over Achan then, right? Like we can't,
For sure.
yeah,
For
you
sure.
can't argue that. So we'll do Laporta. So on to the more interesting matchup. Rasheed Rice versus Tajay Spears. Woof. Woof,
Dude.
woof, woof. Um, this one's so close. I'm still in the camp that I think the Chiefs make a move either through the draft or through free agency or through a trade to acquire a big time receiver who they see as like more of a one. But there is no way. I think Rasheed Rice could still be the guy that gets like 90 to 100 targets outside of the whatever option they bring in. And we're gonna eventually Travis Kelce is gonna be gone. Are they immediately gonna get an awesome tight end? Maybe not. So maybe some of that work goes to Rashee Rice. And so for that, you would lean that way. And this is a down year for Mahomes, and he's still leading a rookie wide receiver into being the wide receiver 27. On the flip, doors are wide open for Tajay. There's nobody as of now in his way whatsoever to producing and being like a top tier guy in fantasy for you next year. But I don't know that he has quite the longevity of Rice. So that it's a very interesting conversation here.
Yeah, so you nailed it. I mean, Spears obviously, you could convince yourself that he could be that guy that you were mad that you didn't buy low, right? Like, yeah, I won't. No, I make everything about me. I won't do it right now. So I can see why you'd be excited about Spears, but you nailed it with the Kelsey workload, man. Like the fact of the matter is, it's always been Kelsey and then Hill, and we're searching for the new Hill, and that's not really going the way, it's not going well. But Rice emerges as almost more of a, traditional possession wide receiver that Kelsey has been doing that work this whole time.
Mhm.
So as far as I can see, if you get a speedster like a deep threat, or you get a big guy like Rice has kind of shown that he can be that whatever he needs to be on that offense to make it successful. And for that reason, I don't think anything's coming away from his workload. I don't think anything's coming away from his production. So if you're okay with this guy, barking at 1,000 yards in the regular season and 7 touchdowns, a number that's assured to go up when Mahomes starts clicking a little bit better. I don't know how you could go against Rice on this one.
It's tough. I guess my one argument there would be we put Spears in front of Dell Reed.
Yes.
So I guess we're saying that Rice, which would be an argument that he probably should have been in the two or the threes squad then. But now, I mean, everything you're saying, like if you take the account like Mahomes into account, it is hard to argue if a receiver is going to get through, it's the guy that has proved that he could do it with the greatest quarterback on the planet, the guy that throws the ball around all the time. So I hear you. I do think for next year specifically, Tajay Spears has league winning potential, and everybody needs to jump all over it, specifically in redrafts. But short of making this episode any longer, just for whoever this is to lose to Sam Laporta in a minute, it doesn't really matter. So I will concede. I may probably in a vacuum want Spears, but I will concede everything. I can't argue with the things you said about Rice. So he will move on. So our Sweet 16 championship final revisited is Sam Laporta versus Rashee Rice. And I think it goes to the big dog, Sam Laporta. Sammy Ball game is going to take it away. A guy who didn't even make our Sweet 16 the first time is now going to run away with it. Anything that I missed there?
No, man. I think you nailed it. Love that.
All
That's
righty.
yeah. I think we smoked it. So yeah,
Well,
I mean, love this rookie class.
oh, it's
I'm
been
looking
great.
forward to next week where we're going to take the all rookie fantasy team from 2023 and compare it to the past 5 years so we can see how these guys do head to head. And then we can look at successful rookies from the past and see the staying power and maybe put a little bit of this into perspective, man. How about that?
Sounds super exciting. Yeah, this is for those of you listening or trying to find some football content in the off season, this is our wheelhouse. This is when we have a lot of fun, get a little creative, start going deep. So if you like this kind of thing, what we did today, we are going to be coming up with a tournament sometime in March. Be doing the 2024 rookie class. And then, like you said, got some super interesting content coming up for you next week and beyond. Getting into the rookie time frame, NFL draft time frame. It's exciting time to be alive if you're in a dynasty league. But until all of that, we've been Rough Draft Research. You've been the audience, and we'll see you next time.
See you.
I took Release that on your heart.